Are we live?
Okay, we're live.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Black and Marine Science Week 3. My name is Jada Alexander. I am a student at the University of California, Santa Barbara, studying environmental science and education.
And I'm Troy Wynn, a current senior at the University of Maryland, studying environmental science and policy, and we are your BIMS Week Sunday Day Leads. We will be moderating today's discussion with Xochitl Clare and Anjali Boyd, talking about the nuances about having your identity in Black and marine sciences. And so Jada will kick us off with a little bit about the event itself.
Yeah, so everybody, hello, welcome to Blue Table Talk. This is our final Sunday event kicking off BIMS Week, and we wanted to put on this event so that we'd have the opportunity to bring together Black marine scientists at different stages of their career to talk openly and honestly about the frustrations, benefits, as well as the importance of being Black in marine science. The unique experiences of our panelists will facilitate an important conversation that will create camaraderie, guidance, and insight for people already in the field or working their way into it. We have an awesome group of panelists lined up for today, and I'm excited to introduce them. So our first panelist is Xochitl. Would you go ahead and give us a few sentences about yourself, please?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone who's listening. Thank you so much for being here at the start of BIMS Week. My name is, as was said before, I'm Xochitl Clare. You may also have heard of me as the dancing biologist, and that's because being Afro-Latina and also being a performing artist, I bring a lot of storytelling into my work. My research is climate change biology, so I study the effects of ocean warming on things that we eat in our seafood and, coastal communities. So my experiences span from being in the lab all the way down to being public speakers, on-screen hosts, eco documentaries, and I even teach Latin ballroom. So I'm first gen, meaning that my family are from, outside the United States. So I've navigated a lot of spaces in a lot of different ways. And I'm just honored to be here and excited to kind of talk more about that.
We're really excited for you to be here as well, Xochitl. And so next up, we have Anjali Boyd.
Hey, my name is Anjali Boyd. I am a marine ecologist. I'm an educator, entrepreneur, and an elected official. My research really looks at trying to integrate positive species interactions into restoration practices to restore marine foundation species like seagrass, corals, mangroves, and things of that nature. Outside of that, I also am the director of Invitech, which is an organization focused on increasing the number of underrepresented minorities in STEM fields. And I'm also elected official in my hometown of Durham, North Carolina, where I serve as the Durham County Soil and Water Conservation District Supervisor. And super excited to be here, and thank y'all for putting on this awesome event.
Thank you. And we now are joined by DeMarcus as well, our third and final panelist for this event. DeMarcus, if you want to give 2 to 3 sentences, a little bit about who you are, your research, your journey here.
Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is DeMarcus Robinson. I am a PhD student here at UCLA studying in the field of oceanography, mostly understanding oxygen minimum zones and areas in the ocean like that. And then outside of that, I have my own nonprofit called Behind the Scene that looks for dispelling misinformation and miscommunication in the STEM world and the STEM fields. And I'm happy to be here today to kind of talk about, our, path in marine sciences and our experiences.
Thank you, DeMarcus. Yeah, we're so excited for all 3 of you guys to join us for this panel. This is supposed to set off the tone for the rest of BIMS Week and really understand the common threads that we all share as being members of this unique community, being Black in marine science. And so we're hoping that this conversation will ground our audience, members of the Black community, by just having an open and honest conversation about certain things that we all share, experiences that are common within all of our unique lived experiences. And so, Jada, if you want to give the first question and start off the conversation?
Yes. So our first conversation to kick off the conversation is we'd like everyone to kind of talk about their introduction into marine science. Was this a career you always saw for yourself? Did your younger self think you'd be doing this? And what would, your younger self think about you knowing that you are a Black marine scientist right now? Me personally, my kind of relationship with the environment started like during the recession, I would say in 2008. My family went on a camping trip because my dad got laid off and we were gone for months. And I just woke up every day in a new place. And I really made a connection with the earth that way. And I knew that I didn't want to have a career that was about anything else. I had my first introduction into marine science with the Diversity Project. And it was really special because, I got to become included in a community right off the bat that kind of understood my experiences, being a Black woman, but also, being in a STEM career and an environmental science career where there's not a lot of Black people. It was very, very special. And honestly, I think my younger self would be very proud of me today, for where I am.
Yeah. And whoever can take it over. For myself, I always envisioned myself being a marine scientist. That was just something I was always intrigued by. I was always excited. It scared the living crap out of my mother to think that I'd be swimming with sharks and going in all these places, because very few family members even know how to swim. And so this was just something that I've always been passionate about since I was young. But I know that's not the case for a lot of people in this community, in this field. It just kind of happened due to circumstance. You were introduced into this. So I'm curious to hear all of your journeys into this career path.
I can go next. Just like you, Troy, I had sights and hopes to be a marine biologist from a really early age. That being said, though, when any adult would ask me, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I had a really long list. I said, on Monday, I'll be a ballerina. On Tuesday, I'll be a firefighter. On Thursday, and the list goes on. And then by Friday, I'll be a mad scientist. And so I was always that person who frightened people with the list of things that I wanted to accomplish. But I think I've come to see that little Xochitl had a really amazing idea in integrating things and growing in the capacity of what being a marine biologist means. So I think little Xochitl would be pretty proud. That being said, I'm not sure that she would have imagined all the twists and turns, because as you mentioned, learning how to swim is like a big obstacle. So there are all these different things that I think, looking back, I'm sure family and everyone is just like, wow, how'd she do that? But all in all, I think the whole experience of being welcomed, like you said, into a community is something that I'm sure I didn't really realize the importance of as time went on. Jada just mentioned, oftentimes there aren't others that look like you. So the community aspect, I think, was such a huge, important part of that journey.
Yeah, for me, I can't say that I did. I really did not know marine science was a thing until like high school. But I did. So I think one summer when I was like in elementary school or something, my family, we went to like Disney World, and I went to SeaWorld when I was there, and I saw like the dolphin show that they do. And so from there, like, I was like, I don't know, 7 or 8, I was like, yeah, I want to be a dolphin trainer when I grow up. That was like the most that I knew. I've always been fascinated with animals, loved Animal Planet, Nat Geo, all of that. And so, I mean, my dad really took me serious with that. So he like bought me some books on how to train dolphins, all things, whatever. I'm from North Carolina though. So I don't know. I think I might have told people that I wanted to be a dolphin trainer. You're in school, people ask you what you want to be. And like things would come up. They're like, oh, so are you going to move to like Florida and like whatever? Like I'm from the inner city. Like there's a lake here, but no, like, nowhere to train dolphins. And so as I got a little bit older, I realized in my mind, it just became more unrealistic. Like I'm not leaving and going to Florida to train dolphins. And so that kind of went out the window, I think probably within a year or two. And I decided I wanted to be a veterinarian. And so for most of my life, I wanted to be a vet, took science classes, was never like a great science student. Like I always did average, but like stuck with it because I really liked animals, really wanted to be a vet. And it just so happened that going into my senior year of high school, my high school ended up offering like an elective marine science course for like the first time in like 9 years. And so I had to really decide, like I was either going to take the marine science course or I was going to take anatomy. And I was like, I did not want to memorize the whole human skeleton. So went with marine science, was like, hey, maybe it'll bring something back from when I went to train dolphins. And that kind of class really changed my kind of my life, honestly. I still didn't know when I was going through the class, like I thought it was super interesting, this whole new world, thought it was really fascinating. But I was like, there's nothing career-wise, like that didn't seem like something that was going to be something I was going to pursue. But my teacher ended up getting this email about like a summer scholar program at the University of Miami. And she was like asking if people want to apply. I looked at it, I was like, 3 weeks in Miami. I don't, it doesn't sound bad. So I just applied and ended up getting in. And I spent like 3 weeks there taking like 2 classes and doing like a whole bunch of field work. And for the first, like that, when I was there, I think I was there for like 2 days and I called my parents and was like, yeah, like this is what I'm going to do. I don't know what's next, but like this is it in some capacity. We just need to figure everything else out. So yeah, that was a pretty hectic senior year for me. I like literally had to scrap all my colleges and like figure out what schools. So I was just Googling like what schools have marine science programs. And like, that's literally how I applied to different colleges and stuff. And so that's kind of how I got into it. Very similar to, I think, other people's stories. The communities that I was able to build in college were kind of what kind of kept me in it, because it was not easy. I mean, going into that space, from being Black, but also like being from a community that's super diverse and, growing up in a Black community, super like, I don't know, culture shock, if you will. And if it wasn't for like ASLO NP, Society of Wetland Scientists, their multicultural program, those type of programs that I got to participate in throughout the year and like in the summers, I don't know that I probably would have stuck it out. It was like building community with other students of color in this field that really kept me grounded and like wanting to like stay the course. And so I'm super grateful that now there's actual organizations like BIMS and BIMS and things of that nature that, you're able to have these relationships and do things throughout the year. But yeah, that's kind of been my journey to where I am today.
Yeah, the importance of having these types of programs that are supporting diverse and minority students, I didn't realize until I had, similar opportunities this summer, that I was fiending for that community. And if I didn't find it, I don't know if I would have, been able to push through and persevere in this field. It's so isolated. You're so right. It is culture shock. But yeah, DeMarcus, if you have perspective to share as well.
Sure, yeah. So for me, I'm originally from Atlanta, Georgia. So within that culture, there's kind of a very strong culture when it comes to like the arts. And so if you went to school in Metro Atlanta, you had a lot of kids that were really interested in like performing arts, band, music, whatever. And so if you're interested in like marching band, you knew that you wanted to go to HBCU of some sort. And so for me, I had always wanted to go to FAMU. And so for my whole career trajectory was, I want to be a band director, but then also want to own my own donut shop. And so that's kind of my whole thing was doing that through middle school and high school. And so I forget what was it, but then, my band director had pulled me to the side. She said, "Do you really want to do this?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" She said, and she was a very unique person herself, because even though she went through becoming a band director, whatnot, I mean, she had her own ice cream truck. She would drive around school giving out. Yeah, it's the most randomest thing, but like for her, it was like she didn't want to stay in this forever as well. So she's like, this is very, if you love music, probably don't do it. So I started thinking about it. I was like, okay, what do I really want to do? And so when it came down to like my senior year as well, was I had took a marine science course. And I didn't really take it because it was marine science. I just kind of just took it because of like either take that or the AP environmental science course. And I didn't really have anything else to do. I went to school half the time because I was also working doing a part-time working thing. And so I took it, and I guess at that point it planted a seed. And so when I was applying for schools, I was like, oh, well, maybe if I want to do marine science, let me look for a school that has it. And me going back to FAMU, I was like, oh, well, they don't have a marine science course or majors. I was like, well, I guess I'm not doing that, because I was like, I wanted to go to the school. So I ended up enrolling and going. And I think at that point, I was like, I wanted to just do research. And I kind of also wanted to be a professor. And I got into the biology department, and I realized that I didn't want to do anything with medicine, because a lot of biology programs are geared towards you going to the medical field. I was like, I didn't want to do that, man. So I started, went to a career fair and met people from the school environment. I was like, oh, you should come over. We do all this cool stuff. I was like, all right. And went over, gave them my transcript. And it was like, oh, you could be a NOAA EPP MSI like scholar. I was like, really? I was like, yeah. So here's some money. So now I'm in it, because I was like, oh, they gave me money. I'm balling. Like, I'm in they could have me in a research lab. I'm getting paid like what, $500 a month or every 2 weeks or whatever it is. And how it kind of all connected with marine science was because my first internship was at USC, University of Southern California, with this place called CW Gym course, where you do marine microbiology. I was like, oh, this is cool. I want to do that. And then after that, I got the opportunity to do the diversity project and being able to scuba dive and having that experience and meeting a whole suite of people. And so I was like, oh, I want to do that too. And so when it came to my senior year of undergrad, I was like, well, I think I want to do oceanography. And I spoke to some people, and it was like, yeah, just understand that, you need to work on these things. I was like, all right, cool. And so I was like, I want to combine something with microbiology, ocean science, and chemistry, because I like chemistry at the time. And it was, all right, boom, I want to do this. And through that whole pathway, it landed me to where I'm at today. So I didn't really plan out being a marine science. I plan on being like a donut owner, shop owner / musician, but it all came together. And I'm excited. If my younger self saw this, he probably wouldn't really believe half the stuff that I've seen and done. So yeah, it's been a great journey.
Yeah, both you and Anjali kind of mentioned that your trajectory didn't start looking into marine science. It just happened that you took a class and were interested in it. I'm curious, when you made that shift from one field to the other, did you have people saying, this is not a good choice? Like, I don't know why you would make this shift, and maybe you should just continue on with medicine or whatever field that you were originally in?
Kind of. I think for the most part, I got like confusion, but also curiosity. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what does that even mean? You said like you want to be a marine scientist. Like, what? I don't know what that means. And so for me, it was a lot of. I mean, I'm thankful that I had like really supportive parents, because yeah, like I mean, they were all on board with it, but like they were on board with it even when they weren't sure like what the career opportunities were going to be. I think so that was probably like one of the biggest things, was just trying to figure out like, okay, you're interested in this thing, but like what does that mean like after college, especially because I was changing all of my colleges and I was trying to go get a degree, like my undergrad degree in marine science, right? And so like if I got a degree in biology or something like that, where most people who are going to vet school were getting it, you can kind of, it's pretty easy to like change paths, right? Like that's a degree that you can kind of go wherever you want to with that. But going to schools that had like really good marine science programs and getting a degree in marine science, like that was like, all right, like if you're going to make that pivot and do that, like there needs to be like some type of plan, like you need to. So that was like the biggest thing, because I actually ended up going to Eckerd College, which is in St. Petersburg, Florida. Great school, but like they're known for having like one of the best marine science programs. And so I wasn't going to a school that was like well known for other things as well. So that was also like there was not like a option to like, okay, if this doesn't work out, you can go to the biology department or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So for me, it was really trying to figure out career opportunities. And even when I like went into it undergrad, like the real career opportunity that I could see was professor and like a researcher. Like that was literally all I could figure out in my mind. I was like Googling like career paths. Not much was coming at the time. It was like 2015 or something. So like not much. It's like, working in an aquarium, become a professor. Like that was pretty much the two things that were coming up repeatedly. So I was like, so that was a little nerve wracking. But that was probably the biggest thing. And then also I was going away to school in Florida. And so prior to me, pretty much all of my family had stayed in North Carolina to go to college. And so there was like a lot of like, I think a lot of my mom was super nervous about me going away to college outside of state. Like I couldn't come home on the weekends like my cousins would or something like that. And so that also kind of added to the culture shock because I was like super isolated because there was like I'm a plane right away that I couldn't get, I went home like twice a year usually. And so I was literally just there in this community where I didn't feel like I belonged, trying to figure out like career paths, also trying to catch up because I'm in a major where most of the students actually went to high schools that had marine science programs. So like they like literally were taking the intro classes and knew everything. And I was like, what is going on here? Like, why do y'all know this stuff? This was not taught. And so there was a lot of like that kind of going on. And so if it wasn't for like my parents and the support they gave me and like just sticking with it and then like also kind of running into somebody my first year at Eckerd, I honestly do not know if I would have stuck with it. But overall, like I think the more I progressed, I traveled a bunch, like I think most people have on this panel. People like kind of looked at me like a Nat Geo Explorer type, like, oh my God, she's always somewhere else. Like, so it started to like, it became more clear to me too, like the career opportunities I could have outside of academia and like an aquarium. And so that kind of helped me as well. But it was definitely a big education piece, but also super thankful that like, that wasn't a huge barrier I had to overcome with my parents because they were kind of already on board and like were like helping me figure it out on the way. So yeah.
Can I hop in on that? That's really interesting to hear because I feel that people will be concerned about you if you mention that you're going to pursue marine biology. But I feel like things have changed. So when I first started, and probably for many folks on this panel, there weren't many career options other than being a professor. But now we're at a place where we're realizing that, okay, we need people from all disciplines to participate in marine science. We need historians, we need sociologists, we need people who are well-versed in like economics and marketing and things of that nature. So in the very beginning, the path was not clear for myself too. And I think people were doubly concerned because I came into marine biology as an artist. My mother is an artist and she is so fulfilled by her work, but kind of like most artists, it's a very difficult path. So in combination, trying to do the soft, fuzzy biology, as people like to call marine science, the fuzzy, warm, hugging the fishies science, and then also doing art that's like in the world of the theater. And what is that even? No one really knows what that is and what that leads for your future. I got a lot of questions. My high school, transcripts alone were like one quarter, all theater, another quarter, all AP Chem, going through undergrad, the same thing. How many counselors were telling me like, this doesn't seem right. Why aren't you taking OChem and why are you doing this play credit, or vice versa? My marine science, PIs would be like, I don't understand why you have to leave. Like, well, my academic majors were theater arts and marine science. And I did both of those things at the University of California, Santa Cruz, where I got both degrees in both different things. And so I think we're starting to shift our mindset as what does it mean to be a scientist? And what does it mean to contribute meaningfully? So whether or not you're trying to do art and science, or whoever else is out there, like I've heard a lot of people really interested in sociology and marine biology because we see that there is a tie between our personal, experiences and just the general world and how environments are changing. And as scientists, we can't always fill our cup in one way. We're starting to go back to traditional seeing and traditional ecology. I'm so happy about that. Like we're going back to what it means to be human and looking at that as scientist. And that's kind of how I've been going about things, but that was not easy in the beginning. So just know that if you're out there trying to do something that has not been done before, I don't know if you're trying to be a band leader and like have your own ice cream donut shop combo, whatever that might be for you, just know that when you bring it up, it will be met with a lot of questions. So you need people, like I'm looking to my left screen, my right screen, who can actually vouch for you. And kind of, I think you mentioned there were some like your parents, and then like just people in general who just reach out. Those people who are reaching out to you now are like, those are the ones you cling to, like especially in the very beginning. Otherwise you won't really, like you said, I don't know if I would have made it without those kinds of people. Yeah. And I'm so glad that some of them are on this call. Oh my gosh.
Yes, yes. I feel like along with that, something that I have kind of realized lately, is kind of like the pressure that comes with a Black person in marine science. It's like you have to not please everybody, but you have to prove yourself. Which I found very difficult to cope with, because it's like in every aspect of your life, when you're in classes, when you're doing your research, when you're in the field, when you're talking to mentors, when you're, asking other people, how they went about their career. I think having a community of, Black scientists, marine scientists specifically, is so important, because it kind of lets you like let down your shoulders, like ease up a bit, like people, you don't have to prove yourself to them because they know exactly what it took to get here. Which I think this conversation is very special, because I think this provides it for, camaraderie for a lot of people going through this that maybe don't have a community that they can, talk to relate to them.
Yeah, and Xochitl, you said, about intersectionality and pursuing different disciplines while also being a marine scientist. And that's inherent to who we are as Black marine scientists. Like our identity is intersectional. And so it makes sense that the science we conduct would also reflect that. So yeah, I just thought I'd mention that because it was really, I am intersectional and like my interests are varying. So, and then Jada, you mentioned something too, and I just want to reflect back on the workshop we had earlier with Dr. Kiki Jenkins, and she reminded us that you have to back yourself, that, people are going to find faults and not want you to succeed, but like backing yourself is how you succeed further in this career and like in whatever your goals are. And I just thought that was a really important piece of information to take away from the workshop earlier. And DeMarcus, yeah, we keep talking about the donut shop in the comments. I still see it for you. I see that happening.
Thank you. Actually, when I was little, I had a whole like folder binder with like the drawing of the donut shop. And before like Korean barbecue became a thing where you cook your food right there, like it may have been a thing back then, back in 2000, whatever. But I had the whole thing where you was cook your own food or whatever. And if you ever meet my sister, my name on her phone is Donut Boy, because donuts are actually my favorite food. So, one day it'll all come together, after this phase of my life is done.
Yeah, there's always room for side hustles. You have to pursue every interest, right? So I think we can go on to the next question that we have. And we kind of touched on it in what we were just talking about, but like how your family and friends react to you saying you're a marine scientist, and what do you believe the reason is for these reactions? And some of it was concern, some of it was curiosity and excitement, but I guess, from all of y'all's perspectives, what has been the general consensus when you tell somebody, someone who doesn't really know you, someone who might not have known you from way back when, like, I'm a marine scientist now and marine systems are my area of focus? Like, what is their response?
I can probably jump in on this. I guess from my family perspective, I guess they don't really know what I do. Like, I think in general is like, okay, he does marine biology, and it just stops right there, not even asking like what type of organisms, if I did marine biology or not. And I think for them, they're just like happy and proud that you're doing something great, and there's always amazed with all the opportunities. Like, I started scuba diving, and my dad was like, "Oh, I want to do scuba diving too." So he was like, "I found a shop in Atlanta where I can go scuba diving again." And me from Atlanta, I was like, "Why is there a scuba shop in Atlanta?" But it's whatever. And so she's like, I'm gonna try it. I was all right, great. And then I spoke to my mom 2 weeks ago, and I was like, "Oh, you guys should like do it." And I was just joking around. She said, "Well, we gotta learn how to swim first." I was like, "All right, if you're gonna do it, then that's great." And so I think for them, it's allowed them to kind of see like there's other opportunities and fields to kind of, venture out to and not be confined. But also they told me, like, as I got older, it was like they never impressed upon that we had to do a certain thing. Like, you can do whatever you want and you can, and we'll just be proud of you. And when it comes to like my friends, it's kind of the same way. They're kind of like, cool, you're doing, you do all this great stuff. And I guess part of it is they'll ask questions when there is a situation where they want to know more about it. And then living in LA, like I take a Lyft everywhere. And I guess from even talking to Lyft drivers, they're really amazed when you tell them you're a marine biologist or marine scientist. Because then they're just like, their ears just perk up and it's like, I want to know more about it. Can you tell me like anything? And so that kind of made me kind of realize, like, it's not every day you'll meet a marine scientist in general, but it's not every day you'll meet a Black marine scientist. And when people ask about it and they're really interested, at that point, I've seen it as they just want to know information regardless of who's giving that information. And it's kind of made me realize, like, we live in this planet and it's 71% covered by, the ocean, but, most people don't know much about it. And so I think it kind of gives us the opportunity and the platform to kind of discuss it and come together and do these things. And so, like, from all of that, I think that, people kind of are just, waiting to hear what we have to say.
Yeah, there is such a knowledge gap between just general population and marine science, but specifically the Black community and marine science. There's a complete gap. I remember like yours, people just they aren't sure what it exactly is and what it entails. And that makes it seem a little bit less serious than it is. It might invalidate my career path and just be like, oh, you're gonna write, like you said, like a soft career, like I'm just gonna go hug fish, like as if that's genuinely what it is. But yeah, there is a knowledge gap, generational knowledge gap. Just it definitely has to be smaller to encourage any kind of progress in protecting our ecosystems.
Yeah,
Yeah.
building on. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just about to say, I don't know about y'all, but the like running thing with me is like any ocean question gets directed to me. And I'm like, I have no idea. Like, they'll send me an ocean, like asking me about current. I'm like, I do not do currents. I do not do dolphins. I do not do like, so yeah, I think that's like one of the funniest things, I guess, is just like the amount of like, my friend sent me like something terrestrial based the other day. I'm like, what? Like, what are you talking about? I have no idea. So yeah, that's like one of those things that I'm like, agree. Like, I don't think my family really knows what I do. Like, they know I'm in the ocean, but like what I actually do, probably not so much. But it's kind of funny in the sense that like literally I kind of joke around with it, like other marine scientists understand, like I'll joke around with them, but like, yeah, you get the weirdest questions. Like, what is this thing that just washed up on the beach? I don't know. I'm sorry. But yeah, it's also, I think it's also, I kind of struggle with it a little bit because I think it is super rare for people to meet marine scientists that they constantly are like really intrigued. And I'm always in this place where I'm like, I kind of don't want to like bore you with stuff, but like, I don't know how much information you want. And I don't know how, like, yeah. So like, I'm still trying to figure that out, like how to like talk about the work that I do to other people without like talking a ton about it or like, yeah. So that's always still kind of a weird space to be in. But I'm trying to get better at like being more patient and just explaining more thoroughly like what I do and whatnot like that. Cause I think a lot of times when I'm in like a lot of the research spaces I'm around other marine scientists. And so there's this general understanding of like what people do and don't do, or what people probably do understand and what that people don't understand. And so talking to like family members or general public and stuff like that can sometimes be, I don't know what the word to describe it, but like kind of confuses me a little bit, like how much to share, like what to share, how to explain it. Yeah. And so still trying to work through that. But it is pretty like, it's interesting when people like are interested in it. Typically they'll be like, can you tell me what you do? Like in the like lamest of terms, like I don't do anything like super, like I don't do anything genetics or anything like that. So it's usually pretty easy, but that is definitely like something that kind of I see a lot. And it's also kind of alarming because of how important our oceans are, that there's just this general lack of understanding of like what goes on there. And so it's kind of a double-edged sword where like I want to explain, but also feel like the more I'm in this field, the more I learn about like the opportunities that are available, but also like how important they are for like literally just like everyday life. It's super, kind of concerning that there's just this huge gap between the work that we do and like the general understanding of like our ocean and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, all that is so relatable. And it makes me think of, again, I mentioned traditional ecological knowledge. And this was where actually I was able to find the axis of relationship between my background in theater and my work as a marine scientist. Theater arts is, by definition, the study of the human relationship with relationships. And so for me as an ecologist, it ties in directly. And so now that we're embracing traditional ecological knowledge, the knowledge that we have had about our environment as it goes back, I think we're learning that some of the jargon that we use, the language that we use, the conventions that we use kind of alienate people from the knowledge that they already have. So for example, I realized that people know water. People know the importance of water, whether or not they live on an island, or whether or not they live inland. Look at the, Michigan water crisis, but they don't necessarily know marine science, right? So when you use the words biologist, when you use those kinds of words, people are like, well, I don't know what that is. But sometimes I've been able to kind of strip that away in some of my science communication work, a lot of the, social kind of based work that I do, and find that, okay, so maybe I can learn a little bit more here if I'm willing to take that hat off for a minute and just talk to my people as people and whom they are and their lived experiences and learn from that axis. So I know we're kind of going off a tangent here, but this relates back to my family. So my family is island based. They're from Jamaica, from Belize. I grew up in California, so I have no real understanding of that lifestyle. But whenever I'm on an Uber drive, and I mentioned that heritage that I have, for example, if somebody comes from an island, if my Uber driver is from Ethiopia, they're like, oh, so Lake Victoria, and you know that it's polluted, and you know that you need to be working on that. And I'm like, wow, okay. So sometimes we forget that we as marine biologists sometimes have a bit of a moral responsibility. People think that we have, it's on our shoulders, right? But there is, yes, we can't solve everything, but I think the more that I listen, I recognize so much how my citizenship has given me so much access to thinking about things in a different way. When I think about marine biology, I get to think about my snails that I loved, I'm super nerd about. But when other people think about marine biology and they strip the biology and they go marine and they go water, they go, oh yeah, we have some major problems that need to be fixed. So I think the more I've been able to connect with family, the more I've been able to ground myself actually as a marine scientist. Instead of trying to explain to them, I'm like, can you explain to me? What is it that you experience in either lack of, not being around the water at all, or even being close to it, or, your curiosities about it. And it's actually forced me to dig into my family history. And I found that actually, wow, I have some family members that were really adventurous for their time, and given all the things that they were dealing with, probably even more difficult than I as a Black person navigating the world, and thinking about them as adventurers, really looking at that and seeing how I carry that in my everyday. Maybe they weren't adventurers of the sea, but they were fighting some things. There was a lot going on in our world, and there still is. And so that kind of really inspires me still. I know that's a tangent, but yeah, I thought I'd share that.
Just want to tag on one of the interesting things I did, I think last winter break. I went home and I asked my mom and my stepdad, I was like, hey, I'm in this field. What are some questions you have if you can ask me any? I said, don't ask them today, ask me later. So I came back and it was and she started just naming off just questions. And some of them were I could answer right then and there. But a lot of it, I was like, I don't really know. And so that kind of provided me kind of a foundation of let me go look this stuff up real quick. Or I did a podcast with a little kid from Europe. and she asks about like something to do with like sediments or like how are sediments form or something like that. And I was like, I don't know, I had to go look up the information. And so I think it's kind of interesting that we always have to be on our toes and learn some things. We can't know everything, but I think at the heart of it all, with some of the questions are like, what are the basic questions and what are the questions relating to let's fix a certain problem. And that's like kind of the insights that I've gotten from various people. I was just wanting to throw that in there.
We have a question from Deja Hopkins. It is, did any of you guys participate in marine science related REU programs during your undergraduate? And what advice would you give to help someone find programs like that and get into them?
Yeah, I actually did the UMEA, the University of Maryland Eastern Shores REU program. Phenomenal program. It's actually geared towards, it's one of the few REU programs that's geared towards like freshmen and sophomores in college. So I actually did it like, I think the summer after my freshman year, and that was like my first experience. The program is also geared towards students from underrepresented backgrounds. And so it's kind of, if you've heard of the Woods Hole PEP program, it's kind of like a sister program to that one. So that was the program I did. Super, like, still keep in contact with a lot of people from that program. That was like the first program I had ever done where I was doing marine science, and also the people in the program were other students of color. And so that was kind of my first time being able to build a community outside of like my academic institution that I was at. The first time I got to interact with other Black students in the field. Yeah, like, I mean, that's the program that got me in, like, helped me get into the ASLO multicultural program and like the various other programs that I got into throughout undergrad. Yeah, like one of the best decisions I probably have ever made. Some of my mentors to this day came from that program. And so, yeah, it was a great program. I mean, advice to find them. One of the, I guess, best websites I try to direct students to is called Pathways to Science. Super cool website. That's kind of how I found pretty much all of my internships throughout college. It's a great, I mean, also talking to other people in the field. So like also if you join BIMS or BIMS and other groups like that, there's always like announcements going out about internships, and a lot of the internships and stuff that come out of these groups are usually geared towards students of color. And so it's a really good opportunity to get the experience you want and also have a chance to build like community with other students of color. But if you're not a part of a group like that, which you should be, you can also go to Pathways to Science. It's a really cool website. It's like a database search. It helps you find a ton of opportunities based on like where you want to be at, where you are in your career stage, all that stuff. So yeah, totally, definitely recommend, especially if you just want experience, but also if you're thinking of grad school, any research experience is like phenomenal and help you kind of propel yourself into the field.
In addition to Pathways, is it Pathways to Marine Science or just Pathways to Science?
It's Pathways to Science. So it's pretty much all STEM fields. I think it's an NSF funded project, or it was. It's kind of, I think it's kind of outdated, but the website is usually still, the programs that are still listed are usually still pretty good ones.
Mm-hmm. I know I also, to find REUs, I know a great site is the NSF site. If you just go into REU sites, Ocean Sciences, there's an entire list of REUs. That was very, very helpful to help me to find REUs for the summer. But my experience with an REU, I was blown away at how impactful it was on my networking. It's like once you make that connection with people, whether you're in the field or, you're doing a symposium, whatever it is, those connections really follow you. And then they connect you to the next people and the next people. And that was definitely like one of the most beneficial things that came out of my experience with an REU over the past summer.
Yeah, and our DeMarcus wrote in our chat, talk to your professors if they know any internships in REUs as well. And I will doubly emphasize that. I did my REU at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography after I applied twice. And my first time I applied, I kind of turned it in last minute. I got my letters last minute. And I really didn't, I mean, it just wasn't my best application. But it was after really working with somebody on my application that it actually represented what I can bring to the table. So definitely talk to your professors, not only about the opportunities, but then also get somebody, maybe just read it over once, because they might be more familiar with, say, within your specific niche of marine bio, you know, what to say to really show that you're going to be a wonderful addition to this person's lab. And the whole concept for folks who don't know is that you get paired with another professor, and you kind of get to do an exchange at another a campus, and you get to be a part of someone's lab in a professional capacity for about 8 weeks. So it's real quick, but then you learn a lot. And just adding on that, just make sure, as was mentioned about networking, that aside from the lab work that you do, you spend at least 1 week, one informational interview. And if you do that, wow, you'll be set up for grad school, because you'll know exactly who to talk to for your next steps.
You know, I have I guess a question to pose is, like, for a student looking at RU and other internships, would you encourage them to look for minority programs, like geared towards minority students, diverse students, versus just looking for any RU? I haven't experienced an RU that hasn't been geared towards minority students and hasn't accommodated to make me feel as comfortable as I can be. But I'm not sure if any of y'all have ever experienced an RU where they didn't do that and it made you feel uncomfortable, or it wasn't as good of an experience as you might have wanted.
So for me, I went to a PWI, and so like I was actually like those summer experiences, I was like looking like I need to get out of here. I need to be in some community. I need to find some people that look like me, that have similar life experiences to me. And so for me, I did actively seek programs. Well, when I applied to my first RU program, I actually applied because I had a Black mentor and she recommended it. I had no idea it was geared towards students of color. I was just lucky in the sense that she had already kind of been through similar things. And so she had put certain like programs on my list. And I ended up getting in, and, you know, the rest is kind of history. I mean, so I definitely wouldn't limit yourself. Like typically the RU applications are somewhat similar, so you can apply to a lot of them if you have the time. But definitely that's something that you're looking for, that you're not getting in your home institution. I would definitely recommend it, because it doesn't just like expand your network. There's also a ton of programs that are geared towards students of color that most PIs at PWIs and like predominantly white institutions don't know about. And so like the ASL MP program, all those programs that I found out was actually through my RU program and not my home institution, because my professors, I mean, most students in almost all the students in my program are white. And so they didn't know of any of those programs to tell me about. And so it was also a way to not just expand my network, but also get plugged into a whole nother network that exists in our field. And so definitely recommend. But like I said, now that groups like BIMS and BIMS and MIS and all those exist, I think there's other ways that you can get that without having to go through our RU program. When I was coming up, they didn't exist. So it was kind of like the only way. So yeah, I mean, if you definitely recommend, I don't think there's any like cons to it. Like you get the same amount of money, all of that stuff. And it has like a ton of other pros to it. I think one of the pros that kind of doesn't get talked about a lot is like the professional development that comes with it, like how to write a research paper, how to write a CV, like those type of things. Like a lot of students never get those experiences, especially students from underrepresented backgrounds don't get that experience and stuff like that. And so I think the programs that are geared towards us usually do a better job of preparing you for those type of things, because a lot of the other RU programs where they have students that are maybe predominantly white they get that information other places. And so it's not usually as pertinent. And so like, I think there's just, at least with the RU program at UMES, I felt like there was an understanding of like where most people were, where most students of color were, like the gaps that existed. And so they did a lot of work to try and fill in those gaps on a weekly basis. And so outside of like the research experiences, I think we had like 1 to 2 sessions a week that were geared towards like CVs, resumes, interviews, grad school, like all those things it was also geared, not just those topics, but also like from the perspective of other students of color. And so yeah, like I think there was just so many pros and like so much information I got from that experience that I probably wouldn't have got from any other RU program. I actually never did an RU program that was not for students of color. I know other people who have, and I know that that came with certain experiences that some were good, some were bad. It kind of reminded me of the experience I had just at my home institution, like the same type of hurdles and barriers that you typically have to overcome. So yeah, like yeah.
I would kind of jump in and say I think most RAUs, I think part of their mission is to kind of appeal to various people from diverse places. But the question of if they actually do that effectively is a whole other thing in itself. And so if BIMS and WEAMS and Miss wasn't around, I would really I would advise for you to lean on your professor to ask and whatnot. But because you have these organizations here, I would reach out to all. This is a big, huge network of folks that have various experiences, and we all do various things in marine science, and we have various connections. Like lean on us and say, hey, do you heard of any internships or whatnot? And then that'll be kind of a great way for you to kind of know if this is great, if this is not, and whatnot. Especially if you're part of an institution or part of a program that isn't marine science, heavily marine science based. And so I think that'll probably, along with echoing what everybody else has said, I think that'll probably want to be one of the best avenues in terms of trying to get from A to B. And then you can figure out if these various REUs are for you based off your interests.
Yeah, and I wouldn't I love the idea of really consulting your professors, because your professors are, if they're helping you in this process, they're one of your allies. So they're not going to pair you with a PI at a different university that isn't a good fit for supporting diversity. So even though an RU, like Demarcus said, may have intentions to serve students of diverse backgrounds, they have a long list of people who sign up for an intern for the summer. And on that list, let's say pretend like I was really into deep sea ecology and there was only 2 people at the time when I was interested in that RU. And between the 2, my professor can tell me, okay, that person is because they're a wonderful scientist, but they haven't really worked very hard on being inclusive. So here's what I would suggest. So just know that within departments, there's just a lot of variation. So listening to the ground of people who are around you as to whom to work with is really important when you're leaving your institution.
Alrighty, well, thank you so much, guys. Our event is ending in about 7 minutes, so we're just going to do a little conclusion, but we greatly appreciate all of your different perspectives and sharing your experience and your background with everybody. It provides camaraderie, but also a little bit of guidance into somebody, going into the career when they don't have any, mentors that may look like them. To kind of help them through that. So we're very appreciative of you guys sharing that. And Troy, would you like to go into some other stuff?
Yeah, like how I said at the beginning, this was supposed to, this is a grounding event for the rest of the events this week. As we gain the tools to learn how to be successful marine scientists, it's important to ground ourselves in our identity and how we all come together to form this community. And so I guess one parting question I have for each of you is, what is the best part about being a part of this community? What have you received the most? And yeah, feel free to take that wherever it goes.
I know that some people have been asking about acronyms. So ASLO, this directly answers your question, is the aquatic, oh my goodness, I think it's somebody help me, Association for Sciences of Limnology and Oceanography, right? And it's a wonderful international meeting that if you go to an RU, you might be invited to go to the ASLO MP, the ASLO Multicultural Program. So I met Anjali and Demarcus through the ASLO MP, I think in 2016. So that was a while ago, before any of us had moved on to graduate school, had been thinking about our next steps, and look at where we are now. So BIMS is like the bin for all the people that you would probably eventually meet, but at least you kind of have a regular way to keep in touch with each other. So I've already, emailed Anjali about both of us going to do some research in Panama very soon with the Smithsonian. So we're keeping in touch on that. We regularly chat, DeMarcus and I. We had like writing sessions every 2 weeks through the pandemic for solidarity. We're at different UCs, but hey, we're connected anyways. So just pointing out, like, whenever I need a job, help with jobs, like eventually you're gonna want a job. I reach out to Dr. Tiara Moore, actually, about a lot of my postdoctoral research applications and things like that. So the ways in which that we can all support each other has just been like further amplified through my involvement with BIMS, and it's been really great.
You go ahead and go.
Very similar. The BIMS community has been super helpful for me to connect, like expand my own network. But I think about even like the students I mentor and like being able to a lot of times, similar to like how my family just randomly will ask me a question that has to do with like deep sea science or something that I have no idea. I'll get mentees and stuff that like are interested in deep sea science or oceanography, and that's not my expertise. And so being able to not just connect them with somebody in the field, but connect them with somebody in the field that likely has a very similar path to them has been super helpful for me, but also hopefully helping the pipeline of other students that have this, helping them build a network outside of those traditional avenues. Like I said, my only option in undergrad was an RU program. And so having this like community has been super impactful in all of that professional development, network expansion, my mentees as well. And so, yeah.
I think for me, it's just being in a part of a community in which you have like-minded people that come from various places, but we all kind of have something that is in common. And with BIMS, it kind of allows us to kind of come together, and we can kind of discuss about our research, but we can also discuss about the various aspects of our diaspora and things of that sort. And at the same one, it's always paying it forward. It's like, okay, if we have these great opportunities, how can we make sure that the people behind us, their opportunities are much greater, and they don't have to go through all the drama and situations that we had? Because without BIMS, I don't know how it would have been. So I'm grateful for being in this community, and I'm grateful to like meet new Black marine scientists every single day. So it's awesome.
Well, thank you guys so much. Those were great conclusions, and I'm sure we all feel really great and invigorated to get through this week and rely and lean on each other. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us. If you have any questions about today's panel to the audience, please email info@bims.org, and we're linking, posting their social media platforms for all our panelists here today if you have additional questions directly for them. And make sure you follow Black Marine Science for more events coming up this week. Up next tomorrow in the morning, we have Liddy Cafe, networking, and coffee hour at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So make sure that you register for it and hop into the YouTube live stream tomorrow morning. And thank you all again so much, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening. And excited for another day of BIMS week tomorrow.
Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful Sunday.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.